Welcome to another episode of Marketing Monday. You can see I have what looks like the most beautiful virtual background in the back of me, but that's actually not a virtual background. I'm actually sitting on the deck of a house at a place called Sea Ranch in Northern California, where I'm spending a week doing some resting and relaxation and a little bit of work stuff. And today I've got Emily Lane with me, and we are going to be talking all things PR and so social media and all kinds of good things. But first, this. Emily, welcome. I wish you were here sitting on the deck and we could be doing this live together. But pretty sure I like my location right now today better than yours.
I agree completely. It looks amazing.
Yeah.
Better than Kansas City.
So let's talk a little bit about who you are, and we're going to be talking about, let me actually set the stage first. So we're going to be talking about PR and how it can be used to really amplify the story that you're telling. And frankly, I've been thinking about, since we did our prep call last week and thinking about this, there's never been a time where PR has been more important. Telling these stories about how we're changing the world has been more important. So this is so timely with all the negative stuff going on in the industry right now. So now with that, tell us a little bit about who you are. Tell us a little bit about Sage Age, and then we'll dig into PR and talk a little bit about social media, and we'll tell some stories, and it'll be a great time.
Fabulous. Well, happy to be here. And I think, it's just a really cool opportunity, like you said, to be talking about another avenue of sharing good stories of what happens in senior living. So my background is I've spent 15 years in both corporate and nonprofit communications and marketing, with a heavy emphasis on public relations. And what I really consider myself as a storyteller. I like to get out and tell good stories about good things that are happening. When I came to senior living and to Sage Age, I really appreciated learning about how the sales cycle is very different than, say, a live event or something where you just click a button and make a purchase.
Yep.
And I think that is why I got so excited about public relations as it related to senior living, because we need to be spending years sharing good stories, making a connection, and building trust, which is the purpose of PR. So it's a very different approach, but the same kind of goals, right? Of that trust, that brand recognition, and establishing a good relationship with your consumer. So Sage Age obviously does amazing things. I love being a part of this company as a agency that is 100% about senior living. That is what we do. So we'll talk a little bit about a couple different types of media, all of which Sage Age provides. And part of that will be public relations. And so that's a little bit about me, a little bit about the company, and excited to chat about this.
So let's actually talk about what PR is. I mean, I think of, when I hear PR, I mostly think press releases. And as a writer and somebody who has an inbox that's inundated with press releases,
Yes.
I mostly think boring. And so how do we solve that problem?
Sure. And that's very fair. There's a recent statistic from Meltwater that said for every one journalist, there are 6 publicists. And I'm assuming that is that's a pretty compelling statistic, right? So that's why actually having a strong publicist that you have a relationship with is even more important. You have to have the right person with the right relationships being able to speak to the different people in the media and making sure your story is being communicated well. But yes, at its core, public relations is about influencing, engaging, and building relationships and building trust with your consumer. So that's anticipating things. It is getting ahead of things. It is also responding to things. We talked a little bit in our prep call, Steve, about crisis communications and how we handle that, how you really need someone on your side in moments, not only of crisis and responding to that, but also a continual presence showcasing about the brand, the good things that are going on, and building, again, that trust and rapport with your consumer.
Yeah, so I really like that a lot. So what's the let's uh, there's sort of these three things that there's PR and then there's social media and then there's I don't know, advertising. Well, how do all those things tie together?
Sure. Okay, so I have a slide that I would
Okay.
love to refer to. I think this will help our conversation. So, when we talk about the landscape of media in PR, we love to talk about earned, owned, and paid and how they are different. So, earned media, that's what I do. That's getting out to a reporter, getting a news story created, an article, any sort of coverage. It's also including reviews. If someone's leaving you a Google review, something like that. It also includes user generated content, social media mentions, how you are earning that media from other people talking about you. So then owned media, of course, Sage Age provides this as well. That's going to be your website, your social channels, email marketing, blogs, even your direct mail lists. And then your paid media, which we have a tremendous team that does this work at Sage Age, PPC, display ads, social media advertising, even if you're going to work with an influencer in the social media sphere. So you have kind of all of these pieces, and some of them overlap, and they work together to create a comprehensive digital marketing plan. So they all have their own part, and they work together. For example, let's say you have a PR story that I pitch out and it gets picked up and it turns into a really nice news article or news story. We can then take that and repurpose it into our owned media, right? We can use it as a blog. We can use it in social posts. We can use it in different ways. And maybe that blog is really successful and we'll translate that and use it in native advertising. So we're actually going to hit all three types of media through one effort, which is pretty cool. And of course, that's the ultimate goal, to make the most out of your investment.
So does I mean, I think that pretty much everybody is familiar with the. Why don't you leave the slide up for just a second here. With sort of the pay per click, display ads, that kind of thing. And the rest of the stuff, mostly I think what happens is people will see we'll see a news story about something cool that happened in a senior living community. Mostly we go, I wish I had that. How did that ever happen? And maybe that's where we actually ought to start. So we've got an example. Let's actually start with the example and take a look at this. And this would be what we call earned media, right?
That's exactly correct. So this is going to be a story that came about by me reaching out to a reporter in the community for my client. And they said, this sounds really wonderful. And this amazing story came about.
New at 6, the Summer Olympics still a year away, but the games have been going on all month in Arlington Heights. It's not the kind of competition getting a lot of media coverage, but it's the experience of the athletes that got our attention. He takes us to a gold medal match at the Moorings retirement community.
Y'all ready?
The pool may not be Olympic size,
For sure?
but it's overflowing with Olympic spirit.
Look at how much fun everybody is having. That's the important thing. Socialization is important for us old geezers.
Ted Lucor can't wait for Paris in 2024.
They're off.
So he's brought the games to the moorings of Arlington Heights.
This is for the gold medal, bragging rights.
Kara Knutz is the fitness program manager.
Who got that? See, I'm already distracted.
Turned official scorekeeper for the water volleyball gold medal match.
Close game, 11 serving 9.
She and Ted worked together
It's going to be us
Yeah.
against these guys.
to organize a month-long competition for residents of the senior living community.
We've had a total of 86 different residents that have competed.
So we have 20 events. This was one.
Each day, a new event and a chance to medal.
Bronze, gold, and silver medals for our participants for the Olympics.
Golfers, walkers, and even wordsmiths
Our goal is for Scrabble.
compete in these games.
We just broke the tie. 12 serving 11.
We need to be social. We need to be active. We need to be engaged. And these kinds of things enable us to do all of those. We're having so much fun, we're going to make it an annual event.
Nothing better than going for gold
Good for the soul.
in your golden years.
And then our saying around here is now you need a sandwich and a nap.
The Olympics wrap up Thursday with the team 8-ball competition in the billiards room. Then the big medal ceremony comes on Friday. In Arlington Heights, Noel Brennan, CBS 2 News.
There was some power behind
that's amazing. It really is amazing. So I want to actually walk through the process here about how you made this happen. I mean, I look at that and I believe there are newsworthy stories that happen in every senior living community across the country, positive newsworthy stories, I should say, across the country, at least weekly. And so how do you figure out what's worthy? How do you get in touch with the news outlets, and how does that happen?
Sure. So it's interesting. I need to preface all of this with the fact that you learn very early on when you are working in public relations, you get a lot of no's. And so I feel like that's an important thing to remember is with PR, we always keep trying because again, 6 journalists or 6 publicists for every journalist. That's a big differentiator there. So I was very fortunate with this story. Again, what I do is I first start with my community, with my client, and I want to learn about them, right? So we talk about what's going on, what's exciting, what's wonderful. I think that story is so perfect because it showcases the energy, the excitement, the involvement that these seniors have there. That's really what I'm always looking for. And that was a perfect example of that. So I began reaching out to contacts that I had in the market. And I said, I have a really cool story to tell. This is what it's about. This is how I can tie it into something timely in the news cycle. I'm going to tie it into the upcoming Olympics. And I find that connection as best as I can. And then it's all about the community. They're the ones that are providing this amazing content. So I pitch that out. I wait to see what comes back, what interest may be there. Again, you get a lot of no's, but we always have to try. And then you are, hopefully able to have something exciting like that as a result. And then again, beautiful earned media, right? How can we repurpose that? So now that lives on the client's website as a blog. It's been used in social media. It's been used in a variety of ways. So we get to keep sharing that message on and on about the wonderful excitement and energy and lifestyle that a senior can have at that community, which, as we know, with our penetration rate, that's the biggest obstacle, right? Teaching people, this is a wonderful lifestyle to have. This is what you are looking for. And so that's what I consider my job to be, sharing that good message.
So, I get sort of a silly question. So, did you have residents? Did you have residents? My question is, were the residents okay with being videotaped in their bathing suits, or did you have some that said no way?
They were thrilled. They were so excited. They are genuinely just so passionate about the things they do at the communities. They love their friends. They love their activities. They are so happy to share about that. And that is very common throughout the clients I get to work with.
Okay, so one more question that I have, and I think this is perhaps a big reason we don't see more of this. How do you measure? I mean, you have a client who paid you money, you put time and effort into it. You had the community had to rearrange certain things so the TV station could come in and do the filming and the interviews and all that. How do you measure value on that?
Sure. It's tough because just like you said, it's not tantamount to, when you're doing something that's PPC and you have a direct conversion out of that. It is different. So we have to think of it as a campaign. We can always know how much an audience was reached from something that is in a publication or on TV. We know that information. We know what the reach is, but that actual translated impact is a little harder to tell. But I think that's where social media and PR work together in such a big way, because when we keep reinforcing a brand, reinforcing the good things that are happening, the lifestyle, the feeling, maybe that is what's going to tip the scales for someone when it does come time to make that decision. When they do get served that direct mail piece, they go, I saw that piece. I saw that thing on TV. I saw that article in the paper, and I think I'm interested. I want to learn more. And so maybe it's that very introductory step, the top of the funnel step, where we're really teaching them about who the community is. And I think it's just, again, if we refer back to that slide a little bit, it's part of the whole campaign. It's part of the entire strategy that we have. How do we touch people at different places in that sales cycle? And this is a very important, in my opinion, part of the beginning of it.
Cool. So I love this. And I mean, we have, in lots of different ways, we've sort of played with this thing, and, you know, there are probably 3 dozen ways you could repurpose that one thing that happened. Let's talk, and I want to talk a little bit about it, particularly in the context of social media. How are PR and social media different, and where do they intersect? Where are they parallel?
Sure. So there's a lot of alignment that I think has to happen with the two, right? Because I think I shared this with you when we had our prep call, Steve, and I think it's really relevant. Social media is like a canary in a coal mine for what you need to pay attention to in public relations. When we see chatter in social media, that alerts us that someone cares about either something good or bad, and we need to pay attention to that. So that alignment is really important. Social listening is a huge part of public relations, hearing what people are talking about. And it's really different because, like, social media has changed PR in that way. It didn't used to be like that. So I think that it's that real time messaging and communication that comes from social media. That's such a nice influence in a positive way for how we do PR work.
So one of the things that I've been thinking about over the last few days that I'm going to give you credit for, because I think that you're the one who really got me to thinking about it in this context. And I'm not sure that you might not like the reference. And so I want to be a little careful about blaming it on you in case it wasn't you, and probably almost certainly wasn't your intent. So as you know, we've had a number, the Washington Post series against assisted living has been pretty brutal.
Yes.
And it's been unfair, but they've also uncovered some real truth. And our response has been to sort of run and hide from it. And we were talking, those of you who've been in the industry for a while, you remember when Emeritus, which is now a part of Brookdale, had just this horrible series of videos and stories about them that PBS and ProPublica did. And again, there was some truth in them, but it was done very unfairly. But the thing that really struck me, and it's been far enough that I wouldn't talk about another company like this if it were near and they were still here, but it's been far enough away. They had one person internally who tried to handle all the PR on this crisis and just didn't have the expertise. And so they ended up with senior executives on TV saying things where it was clipped out of context to make it look much worse, because they just didn't have. And so how do you deal with all of that? And so, actually, I'm sorry, I got a tangent. The thing I wanted to say is that perhaps we ought to look at this negative publicity as a good thing in disguise, because if people are paying attention to senior living, when they're seeing this negative, it's our perfect opportunity and to be able to go out and do a story on top of that and say, this is what senior living really looks like.
Absolutely. I agree with you. I think that now more than ever, in light of things like that, it is important to make sure that these wonderful communities that offer so much and are doing so much good are having their time in the spotlight as well. Now, I will say, any reporter I've ever talked to, they're going to look for something that is maybe a little more taboo or maybe a little more volatile, because that gets clicks, right? So that is always my biggest obstacle, is how do I promise you I'm going to get you clicks from a happy story? But yes, back to your original question or comment about the crisis communications part. That's why I think it's so important for every senior living community, not only to have a public relations specialist who knows what crisis communications is and how to run through that plan, but also that you're preparing for things before they happen. We want to be prepared in the event something arises that we need to address. That can be very big or very small. Maybe it's just that there was, a plumbing problem at a community, but what if someone calls? We want to be prepared, and having a publicist on your side who knows senior living will be able to help with situations like that.
Yeah, I think that it is so critical. Let's circle back, and I want to dip a little deeper into the social media part of things. So you talk about it as being sort of the canary in the coal mine. How do you see social media being used when it's done right, when it's done well?
Sure. So it's kind of amazing that AARP did a study where they said that 43% of adults over the age of 50 are using social media regularly. That's pretty compelling. And it's such a reminder, by my observation, that having a consistent, positive social media presence is critically important to any senior living community. I think it would be a red flag, right? If you are interested in a community and you start looking for their social presence and it seems very vacant, that would be troubling, right? Because that, similar to PR, is going to be our picture of what does life look like at this community? What is it really about? What are people saying? What are the experiences? So I think in senior living, the way we see social media most effective and most impactful is when it is real pictures of real people and what's going on at the community. What is that lifestyle actually like? That is what we really encourage our communities to work with us on. Give us the photos from the event you held last night. Give us photos from your happy hour. We want to be seeing and portraying what life really looks like there.
So let's I want to talk a little bit about some numbers, and these will be ballpark. I assume maybe you have some specific one. But if I'm operating a large senior living community, the story like the news story, should I be shooting to get one a month, one a year, once or twice a year? What's sort of the right cadence for that?
Sure. Probably depends on community and size and the market size as well. That's going to make a big difference. Right. But I would, generally speaking, advocate for trying to get something into the news cycle once a quarter. That means you're going to stay front of mind with the media landscape. You will not be a stranger walking into it, which is a problem, right? When someone just decides maybe like once a year or even less, they're going to try to pitch something out. You're not familiar to the market at that point, perhaps. And so it might be a little more difficult to get a story. But when you're a recurring name and you have time for me and the people at the community as well to build relationships, because that's what PR is about. That's why I say I'm a big extrovert. I love this work. I get to talk to people all day long. And it's great because it's about building relationships and saying, I have something good for you. This is going to be good for you and it's going to be good for me. How does it work together? So I think once a quarter is a really nice, fair place to be for something like that. And of course, you mentioned at the start, I get press releases all the time, and lots of people do. And press releases do matter. But we want to always make sure that we're sending them to the right people and using them in the right way. We want to be giving things like that to business journals, to the right sorts of reporters, to make sure we have the correct target. That's another important part of public relations.
Well, and the one thing I would say is I sort of was scoffing at press releases, but ironically, the guest I had on Foresight TV this past Friday was somebody who came to me from a press person who was helping to push a new book that this guy wrote, and it had direct application to senior living. And so, as much as I sort of like, oh no, not another one, I still pay attention to them because there is enough good meat in there to do this. And then what about social media? How often should I be posting on social media? And what social media channels?
Sure, absolutely. So I think that there's obviously, again, a spectrum of this. It's going to vary by your community. It's going to vary by your content that you can get. That's the biggest part of this. We talk about this a lot with my team and here internally at Sage Age. We have to have good content, right? We do not want to be posting things that are throwaways. It has to be good, robust content. Several times a week at minimum, you want to be posting. Facebook is obviously the big heavy hitter still. That over 50 age group really likes Facebook. So we want to make sure we're doing a good job of posting to Facebook. And we want to make sure that we're also leaning into the business side of things on LinkedIn. Posting about that community on the LinkedIn page is very important as well. Obviously, we love Instagram, we love TikTok, we love everything else. But I think if we really focus in on those two, that's critically important. I know, Steve, we talked about the funny retirement house TikTok, and they're obviously actors. It's very comical. But I think that as communities grow in their internal interest in social media as well and partner with us, if you could get a fun TikTok series going, that would be amazing. But the biggest important part of that is that you have to have the frequency. You can't just post on TikTok once a month and expect something to do well. You've got to have that good, constant engagement, constant posting. So that's the thing that, again, you can't give us too much information, because it's always good to have more and really narrow down on what's going to be a great post, a great thing to share. So that content is king.
So, oh man, I need about another 45 minutes with you, and I know we don't have that, but I want to try a couple of things, maybe a little more lightning roundish. Have you seen anybody doing influencer? Like, anybody talked about actually working with a retirement house and using them to promote a senior living community?
I have not heard of that. In terms of influencers in the senior living sphere, where I have seen this happen is very focused with dementia specifically. There are some really tremendous influencers working in memory care and dementia care. And that has become a really huge thing. I think in large part because we have so many people who act as caregivers. They are looking for resources in that way. I believe that's your overlap there. Influencers are expensive. So I think that's another thing too, is you have to first off have a really strong social media base yourself before you would want to work with an influencer. It wouldn't look good if you have an influencer posting about a community, but then we go to the communities page and maybe there's not that much good content there. You have to have both. And of course, as I stated earlier, an influencer is pretty pricey. So I think it's best to focus on your internal content first.
Yeah, I think that's probably true. And I mean, it would probably take an LCS or a Brookdale or Discovery or Atria Holiday, one of these big chains, to use something like Retirement House effectively. One of the other questions so as you know, there are a number of, maybe a couple of dozen at this point in time, pretty popular social TikTok and Instagram channels in the senior living space. Mostly, though, they seem to be run by an individual who's just gotten this crazy passion for it. And I don't know that I know of anybody where there's sort of this really robust presence that's been run by an agency or even by an in-house marketing person. It's usually an activity director or an executive director who's just gotten this amazing idea that they want to go do this thing. And that sort of then brings me into this big question of, who do you allow to post? I mean, I might have an activity where I've got care aides and life enrichment director taking pictures, and on one hand, you want to get them up. On the other hand, you don't want to get junk up. And so how do you manage all that?
Sure. Great question. And we love when we find the person, just as you described, who is so passionate out there getting the content, providing the content. In the cases where we have clients who want to do that, they want to be posting alongside us, we just make sure and share our calendar. We make sure we make them aware this is when we're going to post. So we're not posting maybe on top of one another. We also sometimes handle that from the client. So the client will just send along, hey, I took pictures today. Let's put those up on our site. And then we help work on that content creation. What messaging are we going to put with this? What call to action might make sense for this? Helping curate that information as well. So I think that, as long as we're all staying in good communication with one another, you're going to succeed.
Yeah. I don't know whether Rachel from my team is watching this, but she's sitting there. Yep. Talk about that. Cause I'm like the worst, right? I take pictures. I come across something. I go rogue, as she describes. I try to be more careful. I actually did a poll. Something like a poll. I can put time sensitive. I got a new agreement that I posted up a week out, and then she can go find it and schedule it. But I get so excited about stuff.
Absolutely.
So, what else? What am I missing that I haven't asked you about?
Oh, goodness. Well, this is, again, it's very all encompassing, right? But I think the biggest takeaway that I can provide is that content is key in all of this. What does it matter to someone else? That is something I spend a lot of time thinking about when I have clients come to me and they say, can this be a story? To question yourself first before you ask these things. Why does it matter? Who does this matter to? What story is it telling? Is it timely? Things like that. We want to be asking those big questions when it comes to PR and even to social media too. That's how we're going to get our engagement. So really thinking critically, I know what matters to me because I'm in it and I'm living it, but who else does this matter to? And what message do I want to share with them?
Yeah. And I think that what you're really saying is, what emotion does it bring out? How do you reach somebody's and touch somebody's heart? Right. I mean, I watched that clip of the Senior Olympics, and I warmed my heart, put a smile on my face. And that was obviously what their goal was, right? Is, it gives hope, and you think, man, maybe when I get to be that age, I'm going to be living that life. And that's a really good way to look at it. So I love this so much. Emily, this has been a great conversation. We put up links throughout the show in the chat of how to reach Emily, how to reach Sage Age. And so much of this stuff is that you can either do it yourself, or you can hire somebody to do it for you. Both work. What hiring somebody like Sage Age or somebody else does for you is that they're experts in it and they know how to do it. And the problem with doing it yourself is, and I see this over and over again, is that you have good intention, it just doesn't get done. And so I appreciate what you're doing. You're demonstrating that you're doing it. You need somebody who can help you with this for most of you. So, Emily, thank you very much. This has been great. Willie, we'll have to do this again.
Yes, my pleasure. Thanks so much, Steve.